In this tutorial, we're going to run through the process of performing a return using precise point of sale. Now, in the real world, returns might be required for a variety of reasons, and depending on the scenario, there's actually more than one way to achieve this with precise point of sale. In this demonstration, however, we're going to be looking at two scenarios in particular. So firstly, where a single transaction line is being returned, and secondly, when an entire transaction is being returned, including some or all of the lines within it. Just a quick point to note that we can configure rules around returns. So we'll be using the example of a cash customer in these following examples, but the process works essentially the same way for your account customers as well. Now, of course, you might choose to put different requirements around returns when it comes to your customers versus walk-in cash customers, so accounts versus cash customers. That's really up to you and how you wish to configure the point of sale solution. Okay, so in this first example, we have a transaction that currently consists of three lines for the parts 00C1, 00C2, and 00C3. Now, if you know already that the point of sale uses colors to define certain line types, and because these lines are currently appearing in black, we know that they are sales lines. But it's relatively straightforward to change these to different types of lines. And the way we would do it is, firstly, select the line that we wish to change. If we don't have a keyboard, or if we're using a touchscreen, we can select the Lines button, and you can see that we there get the option to change the line type. Similarly, we could also hit F9. So let's just do that. I'm going to hit F9, and we're presented with a dialog box, and this is what allows us to change the line type. So currently, as you can see, it's set to sale. I'm changing that now to a return. And with returns in this case, we are prompted for a return reason, or basically a reason why this line is being returned. And I'm going to choose from one of the defaults here. I'll just say it's damaged and hit OK. You can now see that that line that we've just changed is now red, indicating that it is a return line. We also know it's a return because the quantity is actually negative, indicating that effectively we are taking the part back into stock. Now, if we had multiple lines that need to be converted to return lines, we can use the standard process for highlighting multiple lines using Windows. So you could hold down Control and highlight individual lines, or you could hold down Shift and select a range of lines, and then the process would be the same. You could change the line type to a return or whatever you like. So you can deal with lines in bulk if you prefer. But essentially, once we've made the adjustments and we've created our return line, the process from this point forward in point of sale is essentially the same as it would be for any normal transaction. So you would proceed to the payment screen, select the payment type, and complete the sale. Receipt prints out, and we're done. Now, in the second example, we're effectively going to start from the other end. So in this example, we have a customer who has purchased a number of items. They have their receipt with them and they wish to return some or all of the items on this specific transaction. Now, this is especially common for companies who require their customers to keep a receipt if they wish to have the opportunity to return items later. Okay, so we can initiate what's called an auto return process, and again, this can be done numerous ways. We can click transaction and go to new auto return, or as you can see there, we also have the option of holding down Shift and hitting F7, and we're presented with a different dialog box this time for the auto return. And what it's actually asking us for here is the transaction information, so the docket number. Now, if the customer has the docket with them, and let's assume that they do, and this is it here, what we can do is we can click the search. It will open a search screen now, and you can see that we're presented with some criteria for us to be able to filter down and find this particular transaction. Now, this was a recent transaction, so just by hitting search here, I can find it just in my results. I can see here that it's a docket number 153. There it is. It relates to our docket here. So I double click that. Once again, I have to provide a return reason. Let's say that these were damaged. Sorry, we've received the wrong one, let's say. So we'll say incorrect item, hit OK. And now, slightly different to our first example, now the entire transaction has imported back into Precise POS with every line as a return line by default. Now, if they only wanted to return one of those items, let's say they were only wanting to return the item 00C3, well, what they could simply do is highlight the other lines and delete them, and that would just leave us now with just the third item, 00C3, to be returned, which is fine. And so that's how you would do an auto return where the entire transaction, or perhaps certain lines within an entire transaction, need to be returned. But here's one point to make about precise point of sale, which actually makes it very, very powerful. Often in these scenarios, the customer doesn't just wish to have an item returned, but they wish to exchange it for something else. So particularly in the case where we have an item being returned that was the wrong item, often what we would like to be able to do is to return that item, but then sell them the right item and just ask the customer to pay for the difference. Now, this can actually be quite a convoluted process in other systems, but with precise point of sale, it's actually rather simple. So we would return the transaction line as we've just done and as we've just seen, but then the customer is free to actually add purchases to this return transaction. So, for example, I could add C2, I could add a bunch of other different items. What we're able to do here is actually just put everything on the one transaction. In actual fact, if we wanted to, we could change all of these lines so that we have, some of the lines are actually lines that are going on order, in addition to lines that are being returned, in addition to lines that are being sold and shipped today. So you can see there's quite a lot of flexibility and power around what Precise POS is able to do in this scenario.